Last night, while you were unconscious, your brain made several of today's decisions without you. Not suggestions, not rough drafts, actual decisions. The kind that feel like yours when you wake up and act on them. The kind you explain to other people with reasons and logic and confidence. The kind you believe came from the version of you that is awake, alert, and in control. But the groundwork was laid in the dark. The conclusion was reached before you opened your eyes. And the waking you inherited it without knowing. This is not a metaphor. This is what the neuroscience shows. For decades, researchers studying sleep assumed the brain was doing maintenance at night, clearing waste, consolidating memories, restoring the body, useful background work, but passive. The sleeping brain as janitor, not architect. That assumption has been dismantled study by study over the last 30 years, and what has replaced it is stranger and more unsettling than anyone expected. Your sleeping brain is not maintaining, it is deciding. In 2016, a team of researchers at Lancaster University, led by Ulrich Wagner, published findings from a series of experiments that examined what happens to unresolved problems when people sleep on them. Participants were given a complex decision task, a problem with no obvious solution, and then split into two groups. One group tried to solve it after a period of wakefulness. The other group slept before attempting the solution. The sleeping group outperformed the waking group significantly, not because sleep gave them more energy, because something happened during sleep that restructured how they understood the problem. The sleeping brain had reframed the question, and then handed the answer to the waking brain as if it had always been there. You have felt this. You went to bed stuck on something, a decision, a conflict, a problem you had been turning over all day, and woke up knowing what to do, not thinking you knew, knowing, with a certainty that felt almost physical. You called it sleeping on it. You thought you were just resting and then returning to the problem with fresh eyes. But that is not what happened. While you slept, your brain kept working, and it worked differently than it does when you are awake. Here is why that difference matters. The waking brain runs on logic. It runs on language. It runs on the sequential, step-by-step reasoning that evolution gave you to navigate the social world, to argue, to plan, to explain yourself to other people. It is powerful. It is also constrained, because the same system that lets you build logical arguments also locks you into them. You follow a line of reasoning, you get attached to its conclusions, and you stop seeing the options that fall outside the frame. The sleeping brain has no such constraint. During REM sleep, the stage characterized by rapid eye movement and vivid dreaming, the brain enters a state of what neuroscientists call hyper-associative thinking. Connections form between concepts that would never connect in waking life. Distant memories link to present problems. Emotional weight gets redistributed across experiences you thought you had already processed. The rigid frame your waking brain had built around the problem quietly dissolves, and the problem gets seen from angles that conscious logic could not reach. Matthew Walker, neuroscientist and author of a landmark study on sleep and cognition at the University of California, Berkeley, described REM sleep as the brain's own therapy session, not in a soft metaphorical sense, in a measurable neurological sense. The emotional charge attached to difficult memories and unresolved decisions actually decreases during REM sleep. You wake up with the same information, but a different relationship to it. Calmer, clearer, already tilted toward a conclusion. And here is the part that changes everything. That conclusion was not random. It was shaped by what you were thinking about before you fell asleep. Research from Harvard Medical School, including work by Robert Stickgold, one of the world's leading sleep scientists, has shown that the content of your dreams and the restructuring that happens during sleep is directly influenced by the problems and experiences that were active in your mind in the hours before sleep. Your brain does not pick randomly what to work on overnight. It picks what you left unfinished, what you were most emotionally engaged with, what you had not yet resolved, which means the decisions your sleeping brain makes are not arbitrary. They are targeted. They are responses to specific questions your waking brain was holding when it went offline. Think about what that means for your life right now. Every major decision you have been sitting with, the ones you keep returning to, the ones you fall asleep thinking about, your sleeping brain has been running overnight processing on them, restructuring them, forming conclusions, waking self in the form of gut feelings, sudden clarity, a quiet certainty that feels like intuition but is actually something more precise. The decision you thought you made this morning may have been made at 3 a.m. This has implications that researchers are only beginning to work through. A 2021 study from the University of Massachusetts Amherst found that people who had slept between two evaluations of an ethical dilemma showed measurably different moral reasoning than those who had not. They were less reactive, more able to separate the emotional weight of the situation from the logical structure of the choice. Sleep had not just rested them, it had morally recalibrated them. Your sleeping brain is making ethical judgments about the decisions you will face tomorrow. Ancient cultures understood something about this without having the neuroscience. The practice of sleeping on important decisions is documented across Greek, Roman, Japanese, and indigenous traditions. Temple sleep, the practice of sleeping in a sacred space specifically to receive guidance on a major decision, was a formal institution in ancient Greece. People traveled days to do it. They understood, through lived experience across generations, that the sleeping mind had access to something the waking mind did not. They named it divine. We now have a different name for it, but the observation was the same. You go to sleep with a question. You wake up with an answer. The answer feels like yours. And it is, just not from the part of you that you think is doing the deciding. There is one more layer to this that is genuinely difficult to sit with. Because if your sleeping brain is making decisions before your waking brain consciously engages with them, then the feeling of deliberation you experience during the day, the weighing of options, the careful reasoning, the sense of being the author of your own choices, may be, at least in part, a story your waking brain is telling after the conclusion has already been reached. Not a lie, not an illusion, but a narration. Your conscious mind arriving at the scene after the deciding has already happened and constructing a sensible explanation for a choice it did not originate. Neuroscientist Benjamin Libet documented something adjacent to this in his famous experiments on free will and brain activity in the 1980s, showing that the brain's motor signal to initiate a movement precedes conscious awareness of the decision to move by nearly half a second. The decision to act came before the awareness of deciding. Sleep research is now suggesting something similar operates at the level of complex choices, not just muscle movements. You did not decide, you discovered. And the discovery happened while you were unconscious, in a brain state you cannot observe, using a form of intelligence you cannot access directly, running on questions you left open when you closed your eyes. So tonight, before you sleep, pay attention to what you leave unresolved, what you let sit in your mind as the light goes out. Because your brain is about to go to work on exactly that. And when you wake up tomorrow with a feeling about what to do, a clarity that feels like it came from nowhere, it did not come from nowhere. It came from last night. Subscribe. Ja.